Alright, today we are going to be using some leaves to create our artwork. And this artwork is inspired by 3 different art concepts. The first is overlapping. We are going to use overlapping in our artwork today with our leaves, which means that one leaf will be over another leaf a little bit. And what that does is it helps show something called depth, where it looks like something's above something else. It also helps make shapes stand out. This one in front stands out. The one behind does not stand out as much. And it creates some variety, some more interest in our artwork. Another thing that we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to be doing a little bit of drawing from observation. And what that means is that you're drawing what you see from real life rather than using your imagination or memory. So you're using your eyes and you're trying to make it look like what you're looking at. And then the last thing we're going to be doing today is we're going to be focusing on contour line. Contour lines define the edges of something. So when we look at this leaf here, the contour line is the edge that creates the shape. So we're going to be doing that in our artwork as well. Now, when we get started, we're going to be using marker today, so you could use any sort of blank piece of paper should be fine. I'm going to be using something called cardstock. It's a little bit thicker than a regular copy paper that you might find in a printer, but a regular piece of printer paper would work as well. Now, when you find some leaves, you want to look for variety. So I've got some I've gone outside to get. This one's not so good because it's curled up. We want the flat leaves because then they're easier to trace. So we need to make sure that we're looking for things that are flat. I know outside right now, especially in the fall, you might find a lot of leaves that are kind of curled up on the edges. Those aren't going to work well for this. All right, sizes are also important too. So you can see here's a couple of bigger ones I could use in addition to my small ones. Now, when I get started, I would start with the biggest leaves I have first. And I'm going to be doing this in a Sharpie so that you can see the edges very clearly. If you want to just use a regular black marker, that's fine. You could even just use a pencil, but I like the dark lines better. So I recommend a black Sharpie or a black marker. All right, so you're gonna be tracing the edges of these leaves. Now you can see these are kind of popping up a little bit, but that's okay. I'm just gonna do my best. I might have to kind of hold it in some different spots. And that's okay, doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to go all the way around, trying my best to stay near the edge. And then after I'm done tracing the edges of my leaf, I'm going to be looking at the leaf. This is the drawing from observation part. Right now I'm doing the contour line part. But after I'm done doing this edge, I'm going to go back and look really carefully at this leaf. So I don't want to get rid of it. Let's see, and then I think I'll look at the stem too. All right, so now I'm going to do some drawing from observation. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at the veins in this leaf and adding those to my artwork, starting with the stem. Now you can see the stem on this one's pretty long. I don't have to make it as long, but I notice that that line comes in from the stem and goes all the way up to the very tip. It goes all the way up. And then I also notice this one goes all the way to here. So I'm using my eyes and I'm creating what I see. There's another here that I can add in. And there's another one that goes towards here. And then I see one going towards there. Now those are kind of the big veins, but there are some smaller ones as well that I can add in. So I notice this one here coming up towards that pointed part. Same thing on the other side. There's one here that comes up. Let's see, where else? One here that comes out towards that point. There's one here that comes to the edge. So I'm just going in and I'm adding in all these veins. Now, after you're done adding in the veins that you see, you're gonna add another leaf. So you can choose you could use the same one if you only have a couple, or you can choose a new one to add. So I'm going to choose a new one to add in mine. All right, so there we go. So that's the drawing from observation part. Now I'm going to do the overlapping part. So I'm going to choose a new leaf. I'm going to use this one. And I'm going to place it somewhere kind of off towards one side of the first leaf that I drew. Now, I don't want to draw the whole leaf here because then it's not overlapping. I want to draw just from where this first leaf ends and go around and come back to here. So I'm going to hold this. I've got kind of a zigzag edge on this leaf. So I'm going to draw it up and then back down. And then I have to move my hand out of the way. And then when I get to the leaf again, I stop. I don't keep going because then it will ruin the overlapping effect. All right, so now the big leaf that I drew first is on top of the leaf I just drew. That's overlapping. This is overlapping that. So now I'm going to go back and add in the veins. So I'm going to set it right next to it so I can look very carefully. I see the center vein first, and then I notice there's a lot of veins that come out towards the edges, and when they get towards the edge, they split. So I'm going to start up here at the top and do, it looks like they're kind of staggered. So I'm adding in those veins going towards the edge. Right about here is where I notice it kind of splits like that, like a letter Y. And there's another one here that has even a bigger split. All right, and I see a split there, a split there, and then one there. And then this one kind of comes up from really far below, like that. And it actually has two lines on the edges there. All right, so there's my second leaf. Okay, so we want to add, I would say at least 5 leaves before we start to do the coloring part. So I might come in now and add this. Not every leaf needs to overlap. If you want them to, you can. I like to add some more variety though, so I do some that are overlapping and some that are not. I'm going to leave this one kind of floating in the middle. And then when I look at the veins on this one, it's very similar to the last one I just drew. I don't see as many of the Y-shaped splits, but there's those curvy veins going towards the edges on both sides. The other thing you can do to add some interest or some variety is you can have some leaves coming off the edge of the paper. So for example, I could take this leaf here, bring it in from the corner, bring it in from the edge. I think I kind of like it almost from the corner, so I'm going to do it like this. So you'll notice most of my leaves are different shapes. I went looking for different shapes. There's a lot of different shapes of leaves. If you can't find different shapes, then just focus on using leaves that are different sizes. All right, so when I look at the veins on this one, I've got one going right up the middle, and then I've got one coming out to the kind of the bigger zigzags of the leaf. And then there are some smaller ones as well. Not too many though. This one actually kind of splits around that curve. Kind of the same thing on the other side. And then there are a few that stick off towards the edges of the leaf. All right. Now, I think I would put probably one more over here. This feels like kind of a big empty space. So I'm going to use maybe this smaller leaf here. Maybe I'll do a little bit of overlapping on this one. Kind of like that, just barely overlapping. And then I got to make sure when I'm overlapping that I am not drawing it over top the leaf I already have. All right, so then that has a vein that goes up the middle and some veins that curve towards the edges. That one splits there. All right, so now I am going to show you the next step that involves the coloring. Okay, so I have all my leaves drawn. So my next job is where I'm going to focus again on the contour of the leaves. I'm going to be focusing on the shape. And I am going to be adding colors around the edges. So I'm going to do all of one color first. So in this one I did all of that sort of peachy color first. You can choose your colors. Some people like to use just the same set of colors and repeat them. So always doing yellow, orange, red, and then yellow, orange, red again. Some people like to do it in rainbow order. You could even just do a 2-color pattern and just alternate and do blue and then purple and then blue and then purple. That's up to you. So I'm going to start with red. And when I'm using my marker, these cone tips on the markers, we don't want to use the actual tip. That doesn't color very well and it takes forever. What we actually want to do is we want, rather than holding the marker down here, we want to hold it back towards the back edge. I tend to rest the tip kind of right in that curve of my hand, and that kind of angles the marker for me so that I'm using the edge of the cone. If you wanted to do this with paint instead and just paint around the edges of the leaves, you could certainly do that. I'm just showing you with marker because that's the supply that most people have at home. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, and I'm trying to make sure I lay the edge of the cone down so I get a nice thick line. And I go back and forth a little bit, just kind of helps. But I'm going around the edges of my leaves. So I'm emphasizing, I'm making stand out the edges of the leaves by doing this. It's kind of like a contour line design. So this one, since it's overlapping, I'm not going to do the whole leaf here. I'm just going to do the edge that I can see. The part that's buried underneath the other leaf is not going to get that. And you'll notice I'm turning my paper as I do this. I just find it easier to keep my hand in the same position and then move the paper, especially since there's so many different curves to these leaves. So I'm trying my best to go around the edges. I think I, maybe missed a little bit, but I'm trying my best here. The stems you can include in this as well. So you can go around the stem like that. And then just keep going around the edge of the leaf. And in some places where there's like a really small space, the whole space kind of ends up colored in when you do this. So after I do this with one color, I'm going to keep repeating with other colors, whichever ones I've chosen, until the whole entire design is done. So I got to do all of one color first and do all of my leaves with the same color because it needs to stay in order for the effect to work. All right, so I'm almost there on this leaf, but I still have this one up in the corner. So I'll finish that up with this color, and then I will continue to do the exact same thing right next to it with the next color. So you can see that in this one. First I did the peach all the way around, then I did the red all the way around everything, then I did the magenta, and then the purple, the blue, the turquoise, the green, and so on. And you'll notice at some points you just run out of space between those leaves. So I only got to magenta here, and then I didn't have any more space there. Same thing over here. I ran out when I got to turquoise, but this had a bigger corner, so I was able to do more in the corners. All right, so when it's done, you'll have gone to the edges all the way around the leaves to create the contours of the leaves. All right, have fun.